Hi guys, welcome to our channel. In this video, we want to establish a secured OPC UA connection with the TIA portal PLC instance as the server application while using UA Expert as the client application. And also, we will be editing our Python script to allow a secure connection with the PLC instance. In this video, we will further see how to present the values being read in each variable in an Excel sheet. Recall in the first part of this video, we had established a non-secured connection between TA Portal and the free OPC UA Client application. And also, we had shown how to establish an OPC connection with a Python script from scratch. In this part, we will see how to establish a secured connection and also try to resolve some errors that could show up. Link to the first part of this video can be found in the description below. Also, reference documentations that can be used while carrying out the configuration is the OPC UA.NET client for SIMATIC S7 and the using certificates with TIA portal documentation. I have used these documents as guides while carrying out the configuration in TIA portal. To start with, in order to create a secured communication, we would need to be able to manage the certificates generated in TIA portal. To do this, we need to first enable this option. This means the default certificates, which we see here, will be lost, as seen in the window prompt. Next, we need to enable project protection by creating a user account. Having done this, we now have access to the Certificate Manager settings in TIA Portal. Back to the Certificate Manager option of the CPU properties, we can now create our own server certificate for the PLC. Do kindly like and subscribe, as you may find this video helpful, and you can drop your questions below in the comments section. Note that this certificate would need to be added to the communication mode between the PLC and HMI, as we see here. Also, the certificate needs to be added as the OPC server certificate. Here, I will select the newly created certificate. I will make sure to disable the no security option and finally ensure to have the client certificate added here. As stated in the document, a secure connection between the OPC UA server and an OPC UA client is only established if the server classifies the client's certificate as trustworthy. Since we would want to establish a secure connection with the UA Expert client, I will need to add the UA Expert client certificate that was created when we initially launched the UA Expert application in TIA portal so that the PLC can classify the UA Expert connection to be trustworthy. I will proceed to download the certificate. In the Client Manager settings, Device Certificate option, I will import the downloaded UA Expert certificate. By doing so, I can add the UA Expert certificate into the client certificate list in the PLC OPC UA settings. Then I will add the earlier created certificate to the PLC to HMI connection option. Now I can compile and download the program into the PLC. Here is the UA Expert client application. I will proceed to establish the connection. Some errors are generated. Although these errors do not stop the connection from being established, we will as well see how we can resolve some of these error statements. By accepting the certificate temporarily, we can establish the connection and retrieve the data from the PLC. Let's try to delete the client certificate and download to the PLC. Here we see that the connection has been disrupted. This is because the server does not see a trusted client certificate. I will add the client certificate once again, and here we have the connection established. Let's try to resolve these two errors in UA Expert client application. Here in the Using Certificates with TIA portal documentation, we can find details on how to resolve this. Similar to the initial certificate we had created, I will create a new certificate to resolve this error. In addition, to resolve that error in UA Expert, I will need to export the certificate as a CRL file in this file path, and also export the file as a DER file in this file path. Having done that, I can proceed to establish a secured connection. Here, we now have two of the errors being resolved. This particular error is due to the key usage compatibility of the certificate. For some reason, the UA Expert Client application does not see the certificate as part of a certificate authority generated certificate, as we do have here in TIA Portal. By accepting the certificate, we can establish a secured connection and we are able to browse through the data block successfully. Now let's proceed to the Python script. Here we have our code that establishes a non-secured connection with the PLC instance and displaying the data in a data frame. Let's do a quick look at the non-secured connection. Here we check the no secured connection and download to the PLC instance. I will proceed to change the values of the data being retrieved. As we see here, the no secured connection works fine with the Python script. Next step will be to disable the no secured connection as a first step to establish a secured connection. Here we see that the Python script does not establish a connection to the PLC. This is because the Python script does not have similar security policy and a certificate that is classified as trusted by the OPC UA server, which is the PLC instance in this case. Now I will proceed to create an OPC client certificate I want to use in the Python script. I can create the certificate in TIA Portal and export the file so that it can be used in the Python script. Here, I will define the URL of this certificate. I will keep the IP address of the PLC. Now that I have created the certificate, I will export it as a PEM file. While exporting as a PEM file, I will include the private key. I will as well export it as a DER file. No need to include the private key in this case. I will now add the certificate as part of the Trusted Client List certificate and download. Here I have the client.set security string method added to the script. I have added the security policy and the exported certificates as arguments to the method. Running the code, we have the connection established successfully. Here I have the certificate. By commenting the security string method, we see that the connection cannot be established. Here we do not use the URL defined in the certificate because the IP address of the PLC is currently active. And this IP address has been defined when generating the certificate. As we see here, this is the security policy that is currently enabled for a client application with trusted certificate to establish a secured connection. Here we have the policy being defined and the certificate in use. Let's see how the security policy also affects the connection by disabling the security policy in TIA portal, which has been defined in the Python script to confirm if the connection can still be established. Here we see that the connection cannot be established due to mismatch in the security policy between the client application, which is the Python script, and the PLC instance. And by adding the correct policy, we are able to restore the connection once again. Let's also see how the URL affects the connection. By defining a wrong URL here, we see the connection cannot be established as this URL is not defined in the certificate. Note that you can get an error bad certificate time invalid with the certificate being created. This is due to a mismatch in the date of your certificate and the date of your computer. To resolve such error, when creating the client certificate in TIA portal, I will ensure to have the valid from date defined earlier than your current date. In this case, the date is 21st, so I will move it a bit backwards and move the valid until date a bit forward as well. Here, I will be making use of the URL alone to establish the secure connection. Next, I will export the certificate so I can make use of it in the script. I will as well add it to the client list of trusted certificate and download to the PLC. Here, I am able to establish connection to the PLC. If I take out the URL, I should expect a disconnection. Since we only defined this URL address to be used, as we see here, no connection has been established. As we see here in the def file of the generated certificate, this certificate has one URL in comparison to the previous certificate used, which has the IP address of the PLC in addition to it and can still establish its connection without the need of the URL. Although with a wrong URL defined, it cannot establish its connection. Here I have an updated script that stores the updated results in an Excel sheet for every variable being read. Basically, the script retrieves the current value from each node using the for loop. Then we get to extract the container name from the node ID string, for example, the SW module, the AGW module. Then it checks for value changes for a given variable. If the variable changed since last reading, then it logs it in the data frame and also in the Excel sheet for the corresponding container. Otherwise, it skips recording duplicate values. Next is it creates separate Excel files for each container, then checks if an Excel file already exists. If yes, it opens it and compares the last recorded value. If the data hasn't changed, skips writing the data in the Excel sheet to avoid redundancy and prints the message, "No updates needed for the concerned container." And if data has changed, it appends the new data as a new row for the container concerned and updates the file. And if the Excel file does not exist at all, it creates a new one. Here we have the script running. I will proceed to make changes to the value in the container data block to see the response. Here is the timestamp, the variable, the value being retrieved, and the data block category in the container column. Once again, we see that when we take out the set security string method, we are unable to establish a secured connection with the Python script. In the first part of this video, we had demonstrated how to establish a non-secured OPC UA connection, and we do hope you were able to learn something insightful today. Kindly like and subscribe to our channel for more insightful tutorials like this.